Hello everybody, welcome to StraightA. Dawson here, back with another video, and here today we are ranking the possible performance of the 2024 running backs going into next season. So, of course, there's like 32 starting running backs, and there probably in the draft won't be initial great running backs going to take over any given spot, at least none that I can really recognize. There might be a couple that emerge, but right now I think we're kind of solidified in most of like 30 out of 32 of the running back spots here in the NFL going to next season. So I'm going to predict, kind of randomly ranking each of these players based on how I think they're going to do, and this is going to be based on how they do next season. So I'm going to be kind of gauging how many yards, how many receiving yards, scrimmage yards, touchdowns, stuff like that, and kind of ranking them randomly on this order. I'll eventually maybe do an actual tier list ranking, but for now we'll just randomly rank them. But before we get started, please leave a like down below, subscribe to the channel if you have not already, and comment any suggestions down below. Without further ado, let's get right into the video. Same shebang. We're going to do a 5-team round, we're going to do a 10-team round, and a 15-team round, I think. And then I got all this right here. And just because some of the changes have confused me, just to make sure, I'm going to check some of my answers. Like Chargers, Gus Edwards, for example. Zamir White is number one here in what's called Las Vegas, which is why I didn't use a actual player face, because I couldn't really find many with all the consistency of the number one running backs and all these. Rico Dowdle in Dallas. I guess that's one I could see changing a little bit right now, but we'll see as time kind of goes on. There's like Zamir White and Rico Dowdle that are like people I could see changing. So either way, let's get right into it. And maybe I was considering doing running back rooms, but right now I think it's a little too complicated. So we'll just go right into kind of just randomly spinning this wheel and figuring out what the first team is going to be. I'm kind of excited to see what my kind of gauge of everything's going to be. So Baltimore Ravens, Derrick Henry. Man, I'd be hard pressed to say he's not number one on this list. I think that he's going to be one of the best running backs next season. Now, I don't think he's necessarily going to be number one, but I think he's hard pressed not to be at least near that number one spot, because he's such a great O-line. He has such a great team around him. He's going to get a lot more receiving yards. So I think Derrick Henry's an easy number one spot. While the Giants lost Saquon. Who is their number one now is a good question. Devin Singletary. Probably number 4, right? That's this initial thought right there. He's fine. There's worse running backs out there. I like Devin Singletary. I don't like the O-line of the Giants, so like take that as you will. Do I put him at 5? I'm probably gonna put him at 5 actually. I think that on the 5 list it's gonna be a lot harder to get the bad players. So we'll just go with that. Well, Jonathan Taylor, I honestly could see him rivaling Derrick Henry. I'm not going to quite give him that distinction. I probably wouldn't. I'd still give Derrick Henry the slight nod. But like what's called Jonathan Taylor, and just to confirm, I'm pretty sure yeah, he's easily number 1 there. I just think that's such a great team. The only reason why I think I can kind of see a little bit of the splitting action is I think Lamar Jackson will utilize Derrick Henry more than Anthony Richardson will utilize Jonathan Taylor. Now, whether the coaches give out more running outputs, that's yet to be seen, but I still would give Derrick Henry the slight nod. But Jonathan Taylor's a close second. I'm not going to lie to you. Jacksonville, that's Travis Etienne still there. I think he's still an easy 3. I think he's a reliable person, a reliable running back with a good team around him. I think he's going to be somewhere around the top 10 spot of running backs next season, and I think it's pretty safe. The only running back to really screw this up is CMC, so let's hope we don't get that. Tampa Bay, is that Rachaad White still? I believe that's still Rachaad White. Just going to check to make sure. Yeah, Rachaad White. I think this list is perfect. I think this one turned out perfect. We got Derrick Henry at number 1, being easily one of the best running back threats out there next season. CMC probably is number 1. Jonathan Taylor, number 2, very solid. Travis Etienne right below him is a reliable back. Rachaad White, kind of reliable, more on the lower end of tiers. And then you got Devin Singletary, who I'm glad I put at number 5. Pretty solid start, I'd say. Let's get right into the round 2 with 10 teams. Now, doing 10, I'd say we did pretty dang good at number 5, so I think we can keep this momentum going when it comes to 10 teams. It's going to be a little bit harder, but I have some confidence in ourselves, We got Isaiah Pacheco starting off the list, and you know what? I'm going to put him in a solid number 4, I think. I can name a few teams I think are going to utilize their running backs a little bit more than Isaiah Pacheco. Could he be number 5? I think he could be, but I'd be hard-pressed to say there's not better. Man, maybe number 5. I will go number 5. I'll lean a little bit more inclined to say that Isaiah Pacheco is a very talented running back, but I don't think the team's going to utilize him as much as they're going to utilize Patrick Mahomes in the receiving game this next season. So I think he's going to be reliable, but he also is someone who splits back, splits carries a little bit more than other teams. So yeah, I think number 5 is like a fine spot for him. I see a lot of people doing way better. Now, Rico Dowdle, I think, is one of the easiest number 10 spots here by far. I mean, him and Zamir White, heck, he literally probably is number 10 on this list, or number 32 in all of the running back rooms right now. Just because, I mean, they got no running back. Now, they'll probably draft one, they'll be fine, but right now, Rico Dowdle is not the answer. Green Bay Packers. Now, they picked up Josh Jacobs, and Josh Jacobs is an interesting case here because they utilized Aaron Jones pretty well, and I believe A.J. Dillon is still in Green Bay. Let's check that. A.J. Dillon's still behind Josh Jacobs, so they got a meaty backfield now. So, do I think I'm kind of revolving around that 4 and 6 spot? I'm kind of thinking using Isaiah Pacheco kind of range. Do I think that Josh Jacobs is going to get more or less utilization in the Jordan Love-led offense? And I'm going to go with slightly less. I just don't see Josh Jacobs being that great. I like him. He's fine. He's a good running back. But I think Isaiah Pacheco gets a slight nod. I think they're very arguable, very comparable running backs in terms of when you put them all together. They'll probably have similar stats is kind of my logic there. But I'm going to give Isaiah Pacheco a little bit more of a nod than Josh Jacobs just because he's more talented. Zamir White, though, is number 9. I think this list so far is pretty good. Needs some more top-heavy running backs, though. Again, Zamir White, I mean, I don't know much about him, but he hasn't shown too much production in the backfield and definitely just can't carry a team on his own, so that's unfortunate. Cincinnati Bengals. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but they got a new running back in Zach Moss. Yes, Zach Moss is going to be good, but man, I don't see him being above either one of those teams. I think he's number 8 right now. I don't like Zach Moss as much as a lot of people do. A lot of people thought he was very talented behind Jonathan Taylor or before Jonathan Taylor came back, and I give that to you. He was very talented, but I don't know if he's capable of being a number 1 running back. I just don't see it. I think he's easily probably number 8 to me right now. Tennessee Titans with Tony Pollard. Okay, there's 2 different lines of logic you can use with this. There's the number 7 spot and the number 4 spot logic of this. Because I think Tony Pollard fits very well in the same conversation with either one of these running backs. Tony Pollard will probably get a lot of production in that team because I don't know if they really trust the quarterback room right now. So meaning the stats will probably be there for Tony Pollard. He'll get the production value, and as long as he doesn't get injured, he'll do fine. But you can also argue that he's a worse running back than Josh Jacobs and Isaiah Pacheco. I'm going to argue that Tony Pollard will get enough production to break easily the 1,000-yard mark, and then probably scrimmage yards add up, just because I think Will Levis will utilize him more in the chuck down position or more in the running back utilization. I think you could argue, and probably in a perfect list, I'd probably say this: Isaiah Pacheco, then Tony Pollard. But I think I still give Tony Pollard a nod pretty easily over Josh Jacobs, and I think Tony Pollard's more of a top-end guy than a bottom-end guy. So I'm pretty happy putting Tony Pollard at number 4, but I can see an argument made for number 5. Probably, and that's probably what I'd lean. But someone who I think is going to do amazing, I think he's going to have one more amazing year, and that's Alvin Kamara. Man, I love Alvin Kamara. I think he's one of the best. I think he's one of the most underappreciated running backs. I know a lot of people like him. I know a lot of people, think he's really good, but I think he's just underutilized already, or not underutilized, underappreciated, both on his team and from other people looking in. I think Alvin Kamara is a monster. I think on the ground he's great, but he can also receive like nothing else. So I am debating a number 3 spot here, but I think at this point I have to put him at number 2 just because I feel like there's a good gap between him and Tony Pollard, but I also think there's a good gap above him. So I'm okay with Alvin Kamara number 2, and I think he could be easily a top 10 running back next year. Then we get the Atlanta Falcons, Bijan. I hate to do it. But I am putting Bijan Robinson at number 1. That's a risky move because I think there's still probably 5, 6 running backs I think can do better. You can think of Derrick Henry. You can think of CMC. Honestly, maybe not as many. Raheem Mostert, would you put in that conversation? I'd probably put Raheem Mostert number 3 pretty comfortably. Maybe there isn't. Maybe there really isn't. Maybe Bijan is like one of the... Because I think he's going to do amazing next year. I think he's going to just get even better. And he already had an amazing year last year. So I'm okay with Bijan being at number 1 here, to be honest with you. I think Bijan and then Alvin Kamara is a pretty nice move there. But here we go. We ruined it with CMC. I thought about putting him at number 3, putting Bijan at number 3. But I genuinely think Bijan is above Alvin Kamara. So you got to risk it for the biscuit. There's only like 4 players I can think that was going to be above both these guys. CMC obviously is not number 3. He is obviously number 1 until proven otherwise. So the list is dead, but let's see how whether we kind of make the bottom end pretty nice here. Los Angeles Rams, is that Kyren Williams? I'm going to guess it is, but I'm just going to make sure. Kyren Williams, yeah, he is number 1 pretty easily. Actually, there's nobody behind him really. Ronnie Rivers, nobody. This one I also disagree with. I disagree with this one pretty heavily. I like Kyren a lot. I think Kyren will probably be easily number 4 on this list. So there's actually quite a bit wrong with here. So it's kind of analyze this. Number 8 through 9, I'm pretty happy with. Just kind of they're like nothing running backs to me. Then you got 1 through 7, which is kind of all gypped up. I think Bijan and Alvin Kamara shift down, and you put CMC at 1, right? Like I think it goes like this, right there. And then Tony Pollard And again, you can kind of argue this. That I'm kind of talking myself into Pacheco a little bit more just because the O-line for Tennessee is not very good. Then Josh Jacobs. Then we have Kyren. Kyren Williams probably is above both. Now, Kyren Williams is easily number 4. He's above Josh Jacobs, Derrick Henry. Or not Derrick Henry. What's it called? Fucking Tony Pollard. And Kyren Williams at number 4. Would be this is kind of the shifted list, but instead we do have to bite the bullet and say, well, unfortunately for us, it is this list what we made it this way. So it's not the worst thing in the world, but CMC being number 3 is definitely not true. So let's get into 15 and see if we can finish off strong. 15 whole spots as you see, so we're gonna see if we can make this work. I'll be honest, I really haven't engaged like I did with the quarterbacks as much of like, okay, roughly where are these people, so I'm kind of just going with the flow here and hoping for the best. Seattle does have Kenneth Walker still. Is that the number 1 guy still? Don't think they made any big moves anywhere else. Yeah, Kenneth Walker the second. Man, this one's a hard one too, because I kind of put him in the Kyren Williams camp, and I think he's probably about 6 or 7 here, and I think the team's going to do fine, but I think he's just going to be like above average production. So like 7? Is that like a 7, or do I think he's a 6? I think I'll put Kyren Williams. I probably put him above the camp though before, so I think I'll put him at 6. I feel pretty good about Kenneth Walker at 6. Again, I think he's going to have good production. He's on a good team. He's going to have good scrimmage yards, I think, and I like him. He's a very explosive talent for Seattle. So I think number 6 works fine here for him. Pittsburgh Steelers at Najee. So I think it's technically Najee. We're going with whatever this one says. So it's either Najee or Jalen Warren. So it's Najee Harris. I think I'm going to buy into the fact that I think people. So last year I was a Najee believer, and I still kind of like him a little bit, but I don't think he's that good. And I think people will finally kind of like, okay, well maybe he's not that bad, but then it's going to conveniently happen like, oh, he's going to have a bad year. So that's kind of my prediction here. He's going to split the carries more, Jalen Warren, of course. And then you got, of course, Russell Wilson. I think he's going to scramble more. He's going to utilize a multitude of options on that team. So I'm not going to put him like deathly below, but I think 11 is kind of like a fine spot, because I think I'm reserving these two for like bad spots, maybe 12. So I'll put Najee at 12. I think there's going to be a multitude of backs doing better than him next season, so I'm okay with Najee being at 12. Detroit Lions, now everybody's going to be very mad at me. Very, very mad at me. David Montgomery is number 1 on the depth chart, and I hate to break it to you, it's probably going to stay that way. I think they want to use Gibbs and kind of enhance him as time moves on, rather than just throw him right into the thick of things. He did amazing last year because he wasn't just going into the deep end. David Montgomery was an awesome back that they leaned on a lot. And I think David Montgomery, I don't know exactly the yardage, the ratio in terms of David Montgomery to Jahmyr Gibbs, but they're very similar. I think David Montgomery got more touchdowns, though, too. So I'm going to rate, I think they're rated very similar, let that be said, because I think they're pretty much a 50-50 backs in terms of once they get, once you factor in receptions and stuff like that. And honestly, I'd probably put them right at number 7. I think together they're number 7. Individually, if only one of them was a main back, I think you can move one of them up to a 5 or a 4. David Montgomery, I think by himself would be closer to the 7 spot, while I think Gibbs by himself at this point probably be right in the Kyren Williams camp, probably right between Kyren Williams and Kenneth Walker. So that's kind of my initial thought, but right now going to this next season, I think David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs will be roughly around the middle ground of about 7-ish on the spot. I just think that's how it's going to end up, just because they were so utilized together. They were so good together. Don't stray away from that. I know people want to see Gibbs do well, and I want to see him do well, but let's let him get honed into it. Let's nurture him into a great running back rather than just throwing him to the deep end and hoping he doesn't get injured. That's kind of my thought process with Jahmyr Gibbs. Chicago Bears, DeAndre Swift. So I am a DeAndre Swift believer. I like him. He's gonna be in a great situation with the Bears. And honestly, this is a weird situation because, again, I put DeAndre Swift kind of in that category. Do I think DeAndre Swift is better than Kenneth Walker? Probably not. Do I think DeAndre Swift is going to be in a better position than Kenneth Walker? Yes. So that's where it's kind of hard for me. Who's behind DeAndre Swift in Chicago? That's actually going to be a very important question. Khalil Herbert. So I could see that being more of a split back. So with Khalil Herbert being right behind DeAndre Swift, I actually will be a little bit more hesitant to put DeAndre Swift any higher. I'll put him at 8 because I think they're, in that respect, Khalil Herbert and DeAndre Swift are like a slightly watered down version of Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. But I think both teams have very good situations, so they're very comparable. I think this is very smart. I think this is a very smart ranking by me of these 3 teams. I think Kenneth Walker is easily number one of these teams because he's pretty much the one back on that team. While you got 2 split backfields with a more talented backfield in the Lions, with the Bears being a pretty impressive field itself. So I think that's fair. Najee at number 12 still. I think it's all very fair. Kansas City Chiefs, Isaiah Pacheco. Man. So this is, again, I think he's just right below him. I think I'm going to put him at number 9. I know I'm kind of counting down right here, 6 through 9. But that's kind of how I feel. I think he's just going to do slightly worse than DeAndre Swift. And not to say that he's going to do worse. I just think, I think DeAndre Swift's in a better system. He has more likelihood of being a main back than Jahmyr Gibbs does or David Montgomery does. So he's going to get a little bit more volume in a better situation or good situation. While Isaiah Pacheco is kind of like a cog in the machine of multiple different pieces going on. I'm not like too picky about it. I think Kenneth Walker's pretty easily number 1. I think Lions, I like him here. But maybe you could argue this, but I don't want to put Isaiah Pacheco any lower, definitely. I'm definitely not putting him above Kenneth Walker. That's kind of logic here. Kyren Williams, though, is perfect for number 4 because I was kind of waiting. I was like, I'm definitely going to get Kyren Williams eventually at this point. And do I put him at number 4? Like, let's look at teams who I think are better. Bijan's probably better. CMC's probably better. Derrick Henry's probably better. Saquon is definitely better. Nick Chubb is a hard one. I probably would give Kyren Williams the edge just because of the injury. So, like, there's only... And Alvin Kamara, you can kind of argue. Breece Hall, I would argue, is better than Kyren Williams. I think I like Breece Hall in the situation he's in better than Kyren Williams. So, there's only 5 players I think that are better. So, do I just put them at 3 and call it a day? Because, there's a couple of these guys I can argue. Like, Nick Chubb, I think I would put, like, right above Kenneth Walker for the respect. Because I think Nick Chubb was S tier, and now you can argue he's like strong A tier because like he's a proven back with a bad injury now. So does he do better? Especially in that system, he's pretty much the guy coming back as long as he's healthy. So Kyren Williams is a hard one because I think again he's fringe top 5. He's a fringe top 5 guy. I think you got to put him at number 3 right now with how strong the backfield here is. I think Bijan's an arguable conversation. Breece Hall is definitely arguable, but I like Breece better. Again, then you got the obvious ones like Derrick Henry's better, CMC's better, Saquon's better. Dang, this is not easy. I'm gonna keep him at number 3 just because I think I lean that there's more room, there's more maneuverability for Kyren Williams than a lot of other backs. Then we'll go Indianapolis Colts, Jonathan Taylor. This was one I think is like in the fringe of I trust Kyren Williams more in that situation than Jonathan Taylor. Again, I think Kyren Williams is going to be utilized more in Los Angeles than Jonathan Taylor will be in Indianapolis. That's kind of the determiner for me. Plus, I think Kyren Williams is probably inherent. No, Jonathan Taylor's probably more talented inherently, but it's a close one. This one's a pretty good one to kind of conversate about. Austin Eckler. I think his time's about done. I think he's at easily number 11 right now. He's not Chargers anymore. He's Commanders. Where are they? Yeah, right there. Because he's still going to do above Najee. He's still probably going to get enough volume to do well. But, like, I don't see him doing better Pacheco. So, do I think he's, like, right below Pacheco? Maybe he is. Maybe he is right below. I'll give him number 10 spot. I like Eckler. I think he'll be fine. But he's just not the same guy he was anymore. I guess he's in the fine team situation now. So, who's behind Eckler? In Washington? Brian Robinson. Brian Robinson's used a lot in the receiving game, and Eckler is too, so I don't know how it's going to pan out, actually. Number 11. Good old Nick Chubb. All right, we talked about him. Out of respect, I'm giving him number 5. And because on this list, if he played last year, even if he was like number 5 on the list, I would probably say he's the second best running back in the league, and he'd probably be number 1 right now. But since he got injured, and he's on a good team still. He's on a great situation, but he has the injury. I think that I would rather have the upside of Kyren Williams and Jonathan Taylor, and you could argue that Kenneth Walker could do better, but I'm going to give that middle ground spot where I think his floor is somewhere in the Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, still 1,000 yards, roughly situation. I don't think he does not hit 1,000 yards. But I think his ceiling is pretty much what he was before. I think this injury could go either way for him. Obviously, I think he's going to lose a little bit of production, and production on the team, and I think he's going to lose a little bit. So I think a middle ground at number 5 is a perfect thing for me to kind of reason with Nick Chubb. I think that's a pretty reasonable stance here for this ranking. Arizona Cardinals, is that James Conner or something? Who's the Arizona Cardinals guy? James Conner. Reliable back, he's number 10. Kind of wish I shifted these guys down because I feel like I went very, very middle heavy because there's some decent running backs in the middle here that are not going to get a nod. Tennessee Titans, Tony Pollard's going to be one of them. because Tony Pollard is going to be at number 13 here. Because if I'm looking at this list, for one, I lean Tony Pollard being number 13 more than I lean at Tony Pollard being number 2. Because I like Kyron way more, Jonathan Taylor way more, Nick Chubb way more, Kenneth Walker way more, Gibbs, Swift. You can argue Pacheco, so I'm going to put Tony Pollard 13. So I kind of roughly ruined this list a little bit. I think I underestimated the 15 spot. I guess Najee's probably closer to the end than I think he is. But Buffalo Bills, James Cook also probably closer being number 14. Because I like Kyron Williams better, I like Taylor better, I like Amari Cooper, Nick Chubb better. Maybe he is closer to number 2. Maybe he's closer to number 2. Because I think this is when I like Kenneth Walker better, I like Jahmyr Gibbs better. Then you get to 8s. I think this is when I would put him at number 7. So there's like 3, 4, 5 teams there. 3, 4, 5, 6. So he's closer to number 2 at this point. Yeah, okay, I'll put him at number 2. I'm not very happy about it. This list is falling apart very quick just because this middle ground did not help a whole lot. Did already get Seattle, so we can go ahead and spin again. Yeah, I think this list is pretty much ruined. Austin Eckler's gone. Who's the Chargers running back? Gus Edwards. Gus Edwards, right? Yes. I'm okay with 14. Believe it or not, I'm okay with 14. I think he's probably worse than the Steelers. He's probably worse than Najee. Because also the backfield for Los Angeles could be a little weird. I think it's going to get a little weird back there. Then you got the Los Angeles Rams, which already spun. So we got the 15 and number 1 spot. It's pretty much the worst running back in the league and the best running back in the league. And please, Saquon. Oh, dang. Okay, all right. We already got James Conner, so we don't have to worry about that. We already got Isaiah Pacheco, so and here we are kind of going up those odds. Probably should start eliminating these teams next time. Saquon this time? Saquon this time. So Saquon is number 1 by far on this list. I think he's easily, he's above Kyron by a decent margin, I think. Just because the situation's so good and Saquon's so talented and proven, I think it's pretty obvious for me there. So there's not many other players. Now, if we get CMC or Derrick Henry here, it's going to be so unfortunate because they are going to be number 15. That would be horrible. That would be a death run. Okay, come on. We got to get, one more. Give me a worse team. Doesn't matter who. Okay, well, Derrick Henry, it does matter who. I think we can already kind of conversate that this is a really bad list. Saquon, I agree with. James Cook is more so in the number 7 spot. I'll put him at number 7, shift everybody upwards. Then Kyron, then Jonathan Taylor, then Nick Chubb, then Kenneth Walker, then Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, then DeAndre Swift, then Isaiah Pacheco, then James Conner, and then Eckler. Then, honestly, there's only 3 bad spots because Derrick Henry would be easily number 2 on this list. I think Saquon's still going to do better. So you take Derrick Henry, shift everything down, and Tony Pollard, I'd roughly put, again, you can argue 9 or 10. I'll give him 9 just because that's the consistency that I had, but you can put him right with Isaiah Pacheco. So anyway, that's the video. Hope you guys enjoyed in my rankings. This one, obviously the number 5 one, the 1 through 5 actually worked out, but this one not as much. So we'll see how it kind of pans out in the future. Hope you guys enjoyed. See you guys later. StraightA Dawson, out of here.